Hi, my name is Elias. I'm a shamanic practitioner who works deeply within the Kabbalistic system, both its positive and negative aspects. In this video today, I'd like to talk about the subjective and objective spiritual realms. Now, what actually happens to our psyche throughout our incarnations, not just this one alone, is that we accumulate karma and experience trauma. Through this, our psyche fragments, and it begins to build certain beliefs and understandings about the world around us through a very subjective lens. Now, what do I mean by subjective? By subjective, I mean the perspective through which you're experiencing reality. My perspective of a situation doesn't have to align with yours. It's our own personal interpretation of what we experience. Within subjective reality, everything is because my truth doesn't have to align with your truth, and neither of us necessarily has to be wrong. In reality, all truths are half-truths. Objective truth, however, has nothing to do with a person's feelings or views. It deals with facts. When someone says, objectively speaking, they're indicating that they're giving an unbiased assessment, not one based on personal preference. Now, this is going to be 100% influenced by your spiritual experiences as well. What ends up happening as we accumulate karma, which we can just translate to experience, through incarnation after incarnation, we also experience trauma and are subjected to subconscious programming in this realm. That includes media, parental guidance, school, etc. Through this, our subconscious mind starts creating beliefs and stories around who we think we are. This eventually manifests in the conscious mind, where we start to identify with these ideas. Ideas that might not actually be rooted in the truth of who we really are as a spirit. These distortions start to play out within the astral body. If it's riddled with distortions like hubris, sadness, or a need to control, these entities will meet you at your level, and their communication will be filtered through your subconscious distortions. This influences the gnosis you receive, which may not actually be grounded in objective truth. The spirit body is deeply connected to the daimon, your inner guide, your intermediary between realms. And what you feed this daimon directly programs the subconscious. If you're feeding it thoughts of separation, hatred, betrayal, or fear, it becomes wired to attract those experiences into your field. These psychic imprints become embedded code within the spirit body. And when you begin to over-identify with those experiences, as if they are objective truths, they start running as background programs, looping karmic cycles without your conscious awareness. This is especially apparent within the left-hand path community. Most people who enter the left-hand path do so because of the trauma they've experienced, most likely not just in this life, but in others as well. The path becomes a way to fuel the false sense of self or the false ego. Now, when I say ego, I'm talking about identity, not hubris. Hubris and ego are not the same. In fact, your spirit body, your astral body that filters your experiences, is often far more hubristic than your ego because your spirit is multidimensional and has access to all the other lives it is living right now. And through that multidimensional awareness, it can become very hubris. This is why through our dreams, our visions, and the communications we receive from these entities. It is crucial not to over-identify or prematurely root these experiences as absolute truth. Always question your experiences. Do not seek validation outside yourself or look for confirmation from others. You are your own validation. As you have these experiences, especially when shared with others, you are actively creating an egregore that enables the behavior and the belief system that forms around it. This can reinforce distortions rather than heal them, especially if left unchecked. Now, a way you can clearly see these distortions play out within the collective, on both the right-hand path and the left-hand path, is through how they interpret their foundational principles. People on the right-hand path are supposed to love all things unconditionally, to see all of creation as the source, and to love other selves as extensions of themselves. That is the path of unity and service to others. But within this collective, that understanding often becomes distorted. Many begin to view it as a battle between good and evil. They reject the dark forces, even though those very forces are often their greatest teachers. They forget that if all is the source, then even what they call dark is part of that source. The collective becomes ensnared in the illusion of spiritual warfare, which is a distortion that trickster entities feed on and perpetuate. Likewise, within the left-hand path, to be negatively polarized is to love yourself unconditionally. To choose yourself every time as a sovereign being, to transmute all experience into personal power and self-integration. But here too, we find distortion. Instead of walking the path of sovereignty, many fall into social justice bullying, projecting moral judgments onto others, and becoming reactive to what they perceive as non-integral behavior. In doing so, they actually conform to collective opinion, the very thing they claim to transcend. Both of these distortions on either polarity are rooted in collective karma, collective trauma, and subconscious programming that has been manipulated by higher realms of consciousness to keep you from actual ascension. These patterns create entrapments, subtle loops of identification and control disguised as spiritual progress. This is where you start to see this pattern manifest among different practitioners. One practitioner will project their experience and their gnosis onto their collective, and it's rooted in separation. Then another practitioner has an experience with the same entity that is completely different, and they come into conflict. One might say, "That's not real. You're working with an and then begins to project their emotions and beliefs onto the other person. You'll then see people in their comment section enabling this behavior. But in reality, that same deity or entity is most likely working through both of them, meeting them at their level. The filter within their spirit body processes it as objective truth, when in truth, it's subjective truth. More likely, the entity is working through both of them to bring them together so they can heal those parts of themselves. Look in the mirror and see that they are actually projecting repressed aspects of themselves onto each other. And that deity is trying to help them heal through their subjective distortions, to strengthen the connection they have with it and guide them into the objective realm of spirituality. Because in the objective realm, all spirits are connected. All is one. There is no separation. When we project separation onto these deities, we are literally scapegoating them. It all comes down to healing through the distortions that you've become disconnected from in the conscious mind. We exist in a density of consciousness where we have what's called the veil of forgetting. And we forget that we signed up to experience these things. When I say experience, this is karma. But karma isn't, you did this to me, so now I'll do this to you. That's not how objective karma works. The real objective through these experiences is to either choose to love yourself during the catalyst or choose to love the other version of yourself. Both routes are valid. Because to love yourself is to love all others, and to love another self is to love yourself. This is the objective reality of the true spiritual realm. I wish you all well, and I will that you are becoming all manifestations and all emanations. If you enjoyed this video, please stick around.
I can see the color of your soul.